We're in a driverless car. We're here to talk about the 49ers problems. They're 3-4. They've lost the Chiefs. Everybody's losing their minds. And they've honestly, I should say, honestly and obviously, it's not obvious to some, but they've honestly been in a very similar situation before in the not too distant past. So how do the 49ers fix their issues moving forward? I just put up a video about 45 minutes ago on the core problem, the fact that they can't run the ball efficiently. Everything is connected to that. That's at the center of so many of the 49ers issues, is the inability to run efficiently. So, in the title of this video, I talked about Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. Obviously, McCaffrey is connected to the 49ers run problems, but so is Purdy, because sometimes you have to pass to set up the run. It's not about brainlessly pounding the rock and hoping that that improves your rushing efficiency, because that will only worsen it. In fact, that might have been a little bit of the problem yesterday for the 49ers. They really felt the need to run the ball well. As we talked about in the lead up to the game, you needed to get the Chiefs out of their man coverage into zone. The best way to do that is to run effectively. They came out and they ran 3 straight times to open the game, and they immediately got behind the sticks. It set the tone for the whole failure of the afternoon. The Jake Brendel holding penalty. I believe he was trying to block Mike Pennell, who the 49ers were really concerned about entering the game. That holding penalty put them behind the sticks, and they had a punt, and then Jordan Mason only had one really big run all afternoon. It was brutal for San Francisco. By the way, a little morning look at the Transamerica Pyramid. Looks like we're taking a different route today than we normally do in these driverless cars. But that is a look down at North Beach. So, it started bad for San Francisco with the run game. It only got worse. When they needed a yard, they couldn't get a yard. They tried to run play action on the first drive of the second series, and Kansas City was ready for it. Sometimes you try to run play action and you haven't established the run at all. There's not a credible threat of you doing anything off of the actual fake, and the defense can stay at home against the pass. And that's exactly what happened. So the 49ers just don't have the balance they need to make things click the way that Shanahan's offense is dependent on clicking. So Christian McCaffrey obviously is an integral component of what the 49ers do. And I talked about that in the previous video, much more concise discussion. McCaffrey improved this from the number 24 rush offense in 2022 to the number 3 rush offense after he arrived. They're going to count on him to give him a boost. I don't think that kind of boost is realistic, but a boost is still needed. They still need to get into the top half of the rushing offense. But what you hope is for a domino effect, because right now, Brock Purdy is playing hero ball. And I think any quarterback in the NFL would be playing hero ball that he probably shouldn't be playing when he's got 4 out of his top 5 skill position weapons down, as was the case for the 49ers yesterday, and if his run game is non-existent. That's where the 49ers are at. The run game is right now not efficient. They're ranked number 25 efficiency-wise in the league, and they were without Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, who might have torn his ACL. We'll find out for sure today. Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey. Those are 4 of your top 5 skill position weapons. So you're talking about trying to get separation against these teams. Skill position guys are hurt. Well, you better have a run game to balance things out, especially if those skill position weapons aren't in place. 49ers don't have that either. That's why this offense looks broken right now. What we need to talk about more in regards to the run game is the fact that the interior offensive line, and I'm not talking about Dominic Pooney, I think he's been the best one on that interior. I'm talking about Jake Brendel and Aaron Banks. They just too many blown blocks not enough push. The 49ers just aren't rigid enough on the interior to have the backbone that you need to at the center of your offense. It's like you try to build a big building, you try to build a skyscraper, right? First, you drill down into bedrock to make sure that thing doesn't sink like the Millennium Tower over in San Francisco. And I think the bedrock of an offense, especially a run-oriented offense like the 49ers, something that needs balance, right? I shouldn't even call it run-oriented. We could say an offense that a balance predicated offense like the 49ers, the bedrock has to be the interior line, not just in pass protection, because that's obviously important to make sure that guys aren't getting through the A gap into Brock Purdy's face before he has a chance to even process the field. But the run game, none of the outside zone stuff can work if the defense can flow freely from sideline to sideline without having to dedicate any resources to the middle of the field. And the Chiefs were very, very good outside zone run defense. They flowed very, very well. It starts with the work that guys like Mike Pennell and Chris Jones do inside, though. And the 49ers were unable to neutralize any of that. When they needed a yard, they couldn't get a yard. So when we talk about how Purdy and McCaffrey, the dynamic duo that the 49ers hope to have back together at the start of November, when you talk about how they're going to potentially be able to turn this around, Purdy's going to have to stop playing hero ball. I think having McCaffrey as a check down option is a big help in that regard, because at least somebody will have some separation instead of the red zone possessions that we saw yesterday where it was zero separation across the board. Purdy obviously feeling like he needs to make a play, hurries, forces a ball. On the last interception, McKivitz hit his arm. George Karlaftis beat McKivitz to hit Purdy's arm. But you do need that outlet for the supposedly boring plays, for the plays that aren't going to register much in the box score, but what they will do is save your efficiency, because instead of an interception, an incompletion, or a sack, it's a 3 or 4 yard completion to Christian McCaffrey. He's so important in that regard. And I think that just raising the floor of efficiency for the pass offense helps set up the run game. And then obviously McCaffrey's a much better runner than Jordan Mason. And I mean, we've seen this. The 49ers basically, they need a star at that running back position who's a multifaceted player so they can imprint the type of balance that's necessary to succeed as an offense. That's what I see as the biggest issue for the 49ers. Speaking of the Transamerica Pyramid, there we go. We got another view of it. We're just heading down the Embarcadero. My first job in media in the Bay Area was an internship right here at KGO, and we're going to be turning right by it. Cool. I guess we're going through, we're going to go through downtown across Market Street to where I'm headed to right now. So, I mean, we always talk about complementary football and how offense needs the field defense and special teams and all that. We could talk about the defense at some point this week. I'll have some of the defensive numbers when I sit down in the studio and do our usual longer live a little bit later today. But I think that the complementary nature of offense is something that needs to be zoomed in on first, because it was the offense that was at fault for the 49ers in this game yesterday. Sure, there were plays that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs made against the 49ers defense. Sure, they went 8 of 14 on third down. But the defense, by and large, against the good Kansas City offense, I mean, let's not pretend that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are chopped liver offensively. This is, by the advanced metrics, a top 5 offense that the 49ers faced yesterday. The defense held up fine for the 49ers. They hung in there. They got some stops. They set the 49ers offense up to counterpunch. And the 49ers offense just didn't counterpunch. They didn't have a first down until, midway through the second quarter without the help of a penalty. They couldn't run the football. Outside of the 126-yard run, it was 13 for 32 yards for Jordan Mason. That was really bad for San Francisco. They dropped passes. I mean, we're talking about Brandon Ayuk's potential ACL tear right now, but Ayuk, the drop that he had on the beautiful throw from Purdy in the first half before he got hurt completely changed the course of the game. We talk about passing to set up the run and complementary offense. Well, you have to hit on the plays that are right there in front of you. Ayuk gets open. Purdy throws a beautiful ball outside the numbers. Ayuk drops the pass. So the 49ers have to punt. And then, we talk about the special teams holding up their end of the bargain. They don't cover on the punt. That punt doesn't happen if Ayuk catches the football. So I'm zooming in on the offense to start. And then I zoom out to see everything. We go, okay, who was at most at fault for this loss yesterday? And then we kind of take that out and are able to view it in the big picture. And the 49ers just did not set themselves up in a complementary fashion within the offense itself. This has to be a balanced unit. There has to be rushing efficiency. It can't just be rushing yardage, and they didn't have that either yesterday. It can't just be empty air completions. You have to deliver at the crucial junctures, and the stat that tells me that they didn't do that in its most simplest form, the pyramid seems to be a theme today. There we go. We're stuck in a little bit of downtown traffic here. Got to get across Market Street. Might take a little bit. But the thing that tells me that the 49ers didn't deliver at the most key moments is that before garbage time, they were 1 of 10 on third down. And as I said, Kansas City finished the game 8 of 14 on third down. So not good for the 49ers. Now, the good news for them is that you talk about fixing things. A lot of times in the NFL, and it's this way for the 49ers because Brock Purdy is not some kind of issue for the 49ers. We know he's a really good quarterback. We know he had a bad game, but you can count on Purdy to deliver his part of the pie, his part of the contribution toward efficient football on a consistent basis. It might not happen every single week. Some weeks against a really good defense like the Kansas City Chiefs, especially without all those weapons, especially without a run game, there obviously might be some more struggles, but the 49ers can count on Purdy to be there for him when they need to down the stretch of this season. His track record is documented at this point, and you talk about how the 49ers will have to find a way to get all the puzzle pieces to fall together. They have the pieces, even without Brandon Ayuk. Say that Brandon Ayuk is unavailable to go for the rest of this season if the ACL tear is confirmed. They have pieces to separate. They have pieces to, and when you consider Christian McCaffrey to run the ball, the pieces up front in the interior might be a little bit weak. When you talk about the offensive line and Jake Brendel and Aaron Banks, but they've worked around those pieces before. It's about getting the pieces in the right spot and delivering at the very, very critical moments, the pivot points of games to make sure that things flow. So yesterday, Brandon Ayuk needs to catch that ball. Brock Purdy, when they're down 14-12, this is the play that we initially thought was Ronnie Bell's fault, but the 49ers and Purdy himself and Shanahan said that no, this was Brock Purdy's fault. You can't throw that interception when you're down 14-12. You have to find a way to deliver at critical junctures. And that, when I talk about good news for the 49ers, that's where Christian McCaffrey is, I think, the biggest potential boost. In 2022, when they were 3-4, they had also lost the Chiefs in the very same week. The 49ers got McCaffrey, and they started executing on 3rd and 4. They started executing on, 2nd and 9 when they needed to pick up 6 or 7 yards to make it 3rd and manageable. All of a sudden, Christian McCaffrey's multifaceted impact in everything that the 49ers did just showed up. It was just like that. They went from 3-4 to winning 12 straight games. We're about to cross Market Street, by the way. Here we are. I'm going to try to look at the ferry building. There it is. And we continue along. We're 8 minutes away. So it's really going to be as simple as that. It's going to be something where the 49ers have to start executing at the most important junctures. That's something that the Chiefs have done all season. The Chiefs, for example, they've lost yardage at the second lowest rate in the league. We could look up the tallest building on the West Coast. It's the Salesforce Tower. Right under the Transit Center. So that's where you have to start the discussion. I don't think it gets much more complicated than running the ball efficiently if you're the 49ers to set yourself up for manageable down and distance. And then going from there, especially when you're down these weapons. We're going to have updates on the injuries today. They should get Juwan Jennings back next week. I think probably your best way forward if you're San Francisco, if Brandon Ayuk is indeed out for the season, is to transition Juwan Jennings into that X receiver role, because he could separate. You need a separator at the X receiver role. So Juwan at the X. Do they make a trade at some point? Maybe. They've done it before. Emmanuel Sanders came over in the 2019 season before the trade deadline. But for the time being, I think Juwan Jennings has to play the X. You hope that Deebo Samuel isn't sick anymore next week. Boy, it's bright here. We're going to make a turn, though, so this is going to be good. You hope that Deebo isn't sick anymore next week, so that would mean that he could be back in the Z position. And then that F position could be a mix of Jacob Cowing or Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, you're going to need one of those two rookies, probably both of those two rookies, to seriously step up for this football team. You still have the weapons, though, even without Brandon Ayuk, to really make a dent, especially since Brock Purdy can play that quarterback position at a high level, especially a much higher level than we saw yesterday. But the big return, the one that we have known all year that the 49ers were counting on to happen at some point, because he's so important to this team, is Christian McCaffrey. He's the one that's going to get you out of number 25 in rush efficiency and get you up to the top 10 in rush efficiency if he can come back healthy. We said at the start of the year, and I think this is proven to be true, that the 49ers did not need McCaffrey to stay afloat for the first half of the season. They have stayed afloat. They're 3-4. They're game out of first place, but they probably right now should have been, even without McCaffrey, should have had 2 fewer losses. I think that you could easily argue that the 49ers shot themselves in the foot on the way to not being 5-2 when you consider the loss against the Rams and then the loss against the Arizona Cardinals. The two teams who have beaten the 49ers soundly so far this season are the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday and the Minnesota Vikings back in week 2. And those, when the 49ers said at the start of the season that Christian McCaffrey needs to have some time to get through this Achilles tendonitis, there was this implicit acknowledgement that they're obviously not going to be as good of a team without Christian McCaffrey, but they could beat the worst teams on their schedule without him, and they've done that to a certain extent, but they haven't done it to a full extent, and they'd probably take a couple losses on the chin, such as the one yesterday, if they didn't have one of, or their best player, the best player on their team. So now they're sitting here at 3-4 with the expected losses indeed having come. I mean, there's a reason I picked the Chiefs to beat the 49ers, but they also have a couple losses that they shouldn't have lost on top of that, to the Cardinals and to the Rams. How they pick themselves up from this point is what's going to determine how this season progresses. If they can beat the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm sure they're favored against the Cowboys this coming Sunday, they're going to head into the bye at 4-4. They'll potentially be in first place in the NFC West, and McCaffrey should be returning based on all the signs that we've gotten right after that bye week. So you'll be at 4-4 with a chance to regain top half rushing efficiency, which could be a domino effect to a lot of other good stuff in the second half of the season. And that's all you can really ask for if you're the 49ers after all the injury hell that they've gone through, after all the drama that they've gone through over the first half of this year. By the way, we're by the ballpark. I'm going to be making one more turn. I know the sun is really bright here in the morning. Final turn. I've got to get out. So we'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Exactly 20 minutes this morning, but that's how the 49ers have to approach this moving forward. The sky is not falling. They really, really do need to make the rushing efficiency a priority. And I think that they've tried, but it's really, really hard to replicate Christian McCaffrey. We'll talk to you guys soon.